If you're in the military and you fought for our freedoms here in this country, we salute you, especially if you've been wounded in combat or injured while you were on active duty. This is a video you need to watch because I'm going to talk about whether someone who is currently in the military or a disabled veteran can actually apply for SSDI. But I'm going to need you to watch this video all the way through. That's because I'm going to share with you a very extremely important thing that a lot of people who are servicemen and women don't even know, but it will be a huge help to you. If you're ready for this, let's get it started. I know how important it is to support those who have been fighting for our freedoms here in the United States. One important way to support them is to do whatever we can do to make sure that when they are injured, that they have the help that they need, especially when they can no longer serve in the military capacity. I'm telling you, this video is so important to active duty members, veterans, and veterans' families. They may be familiar with the Veterans Administration, but they have little to no knowledge of the Social Security Administration. And that's what I'm here for. I'm going to share with you 5 things you, as a military veteran, an active duty member, or a family member of a veteran, 5 things you need to know about the Social Security disability process and whether you can actually apply on behalf of that injured loved one. Number 1, and this is probably the most important thing, it's probably a burning question for a lot of you watching this video. You can get VA disability and SSDI at the same time. I've worked on, I don't know how many, but there's been loads of cases that I worked on when I was working for the Social Security Administration and the DDSs. Suffice it to say that there are a lot of people who are applying who really need the help, but there's some who are not applying because they think that because they get a VA disability that they're not eligible for SSDI. And that's not necessarily true. Let me break it down to you like this. See, the VA is its own administration and Social Security is its own administration, but one doesn't cancel out the other. They are 2 separate federal administrations running separate programs and agencies, handling separate budgets, and requiring separate criteria to be allowed benefits. So you don't have to pick and choose which one to apply for. You can actually apply for both, and you can be allowed for both. Number 2, and this is a pretty important one, so come here, let me talk to you for a second. Your VA rating doesn't guarantee you SSDI. Let me say that again in a different way. Your VA rating doesn't guarantee that when you apply for SSDI that you will be approved. Now, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I'm going to say it anyway. Your VA rating determines how much disability you get. So if you are 10% rated with the VA as far as disability goes, then you'll get 10% of the benefits. But what's interesting about the VA rating is once you get over 70%, you are considered disabled and unable to work. There are a lot of people who are 100% VA rated. They can no longer do what they used to do with the military. And I saw those cases when I worked on them when I was doing disability programs work. But just because you have a 100% VA rating doesn't mean that you'll be 100% allowed with SSDI. But I will say this, a VA rating is a really good indicator of whether you will be allowed on SSDI. So depending upon how high your rating is, the higher the rating, I would say that the greater the likelihood is for you to be allowed on SSDI, but it's not a guarantee. As I always say, and this is disability commandment number 4, evidence is king. The medical evidence will determine how severe your condition or conditions are, and it will also give some indication as to what you are able to do with the condition that you have. Number 3, it's easier to get VA records than it is to speak to a VA doctor. Maybe you know this and maybe you don't, But we live in an electronic environment when it comes to Social Security disability. I'm not saying we because I don't work there anymore. So stop asking me what it's like to work there because I don't know anymore. But I did know what it was like when I worked there. And I guess I can still talk about that now because I'm pretty sure nothing has really changed. But my point is this. VA records are now in electronic form. So the ability to get records is far easier than it was when I started out, which is having to mail a request to the VA, getting to the health information or medical records department, them printing out the records, and then shipping them out to be put into a paper folder. It's far easier now to get those records. As a matter of fact, those records are sometimes in your case on day one of your claim. However, if you need to get follow-up records or in a situation where we need to get in touch with your doctor at the VA, that's going to be like ice skating uphill. See, doctors in general don't always talk to the examiners. The examiner can ask to speak to the doctor, but the doctors are busy, and then when they're not busy, they may not be willing to talk to an examiner at the DDS. So that's even more the case with the VA. And if you're familiar enough with the VA, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. The VA can be a very daunting challenge to get through to, especially when it comes to doctors and speaking with them. In your situation, you may not always get to see your doctor. You may be dealing with somebody else who may be treating you like a nurse practitioner. But at any rate, usually what happens at the DDS is the medical consultant, the one who is actually a part of the adjudicative team at the DDS, may make a phone call to the VA doctor. And even then, the VA doctor might not want to talk to them either, but at least the chances are greater because it's going from doctor to doctor and they can actually talk shop. I will say that in most cases, it may not have to come to that because the records usually are pretty thorough and there's usually a whole lot of them. Number 4, DDSs are more focused on your work skills and abilities rather than your military jobs. In every case, military or otherwise, the DDS is going to be looking at the last 15 years of your employment to see whether you can return to any of the jobs that you performed in that 15-year window. So when the DDS is looking at military jobs, they're looking at the same window, 15 years that you were in the military, where you performed some kind of work while you were on active duty. From the DDS's perspective, your skills and abilities are far more important than your actual job position in the military. So your actual job title doesn't matter. It's really about what you were doing in those capacities from a physical as well as a mental standpoint. Many military jobs are highly specialized. You're not going to see a lot of these jobs out in the national economy. As a matter of fact, many military jobs do not even exist in the national economy. I'm sure that there's not a whole lot of opportunities in the national economy for a sniper. So regardless of whether the job that you did in the military exists in the national economy or not, the DDS examiner cannot use your job positions as a way to keep you from being disabled. In other words, the DDS cannot use a civilian job and then find a civilian job that is equivalent to your military job and then try to send you back to your military job based on what a civilian job is described as. Even if the job in a national economy in the civilian world sounds similar to your military job, like a clerk typist, it doesn't matter. The examiner is restricted from going there. And if they're thinking about it, they better don't. Now, if you see my video on sequential evaluation, you already know that when you get to step 3, they're looking at how severe your condition is in the medical listings. If you don't meet or equal a listing, the MC will prepare an RFC, and that RFC shows the most that you can do with your condition. And then they go to your work. Now, when the examiner looks at your description of your past work as you give it, They are looking at that and deciding whether the RFC limits you from going back to your work as you described it. If you cannot perform your work in the past 15 years as you described it, then they go to step 5 and they try to find some other work. They're not supposed to go and find another job in the civilian world, in the national economy, that smells like and tastes like and looks like what you did in the military. They are not supposed to do that. It is policy and they better not try. And at step 5, they're looking at your skills and abilities to see what you can do now based on your skills and abilities, and whether those skills and abilities are transferable to some other kind of work that you've never performed before. And number 5, I really need you to focus right now. Do your best, get some help, because this is important. SSA will expedite your SSDI claim when you were injured on active duty. This is a program in the Social Security Administration called the Military Casualty Wounded Warrior Program. And basically this is how it looks. If you had an injury, illness, or a wound after October 1st, 2001, you fall in that Wounded Warrior Program. And your case can be set to a high level of priority. Matter of fact, a very high priority, the highest priority. And your case will get special attention at the DDS. It doesn't matter if it's a mental or physical condition. It also doesn't matter if you sustain this injury while in combat or not. It doesn't matter. If you had this injury or illness or condition after October 1st, 2001, then you qualify for the Wounded Warrior Program. I bet you're wondering, well, what if I was in a foreign country handling burn pits? You still qualify. It doesn't matter if you were on U.S. or foreign soil. If your injury or illness or condition started after October 1st, 2001, you are eligible for the Wounded Warrior Program. So what will happen is you will file your application, and I recommend that you go into the office and do that, because we want to make sure that your case is flagged as a Wounded Warrior military casualty case. And that will ensure that your case gets high priority at the DDS. They will expedite the claim as quickly as possible. And that's all I got for this video on military and SSDI. I encourage you, if you do have that illness or injury or wound that happened after October 1st, 2001, that you apply right away. Make sure that your case gets flagged, and also make sure that you list all your medical sources and all your documentation and get those in line so you can see your case moved along very quickly. That's all I got for this video, but stick around. I've got more coming. Don't leave me hanging, because I'm going to see you on the other side.